Dear Ignite. Today I've got with me Helen, and we're going to be talking about, partly about her book, but we're also going to be talking about startup growth inhibitors. So, if you've got a startup, where are the blind spots? What are the things that you need to look out for? And in Helen's book, she actually goes into this into a lot of detail. Before we talk about that, Helen, I always ask my guests, where can people find you?
Well, what a pleasure being here with you, Tim. Thank you.
Thank you.
People can find me through multiple social media channels. LinkedIn obviously is one of them. Then Twitter, I'm on Twitter every single day. Handler is YU, Helen Yu. And then they can also find me on YouTube. So I have my own YouTube channel where I'm a host of CXO Spice video podcast.
And you are very active on social media.
Yeah, thank you.
So how did someone like how did you get into having senior roles in you worked at Oracle and Adobe and how is it that you got there?
Oh, I would start to say I'm a curious, courageous multiplier. I multiply people's joy, knowledge, and prosperity. Okay. And the reason I am where I'm at today is really because of my curiosity and learning agility. I started my career as an accountant and financial analyst, and then learned how to code. And at Hyperion, right, went on
Yeah.
to design and implemented 400 plus financial planning applications, working alongside with CFOs and CIOs. And then Oracle acquired us. And that's how I got into the Oracle BI consulting practice. And then as soon as we were acquired, I was tapped in to lead BI consulting practice. And then 12 months into that, and I was tapped on into joining Keith Block's team. As a matter of fact, at the time, he was the EVP of sales. And then under his tutelage, I learned the nuance of enterprise solution sales. That was the best training ever in my career, as a matter of fact. And then I learned
And working Oracle is a
yeah,
great place to learn about enterprise sales.
absolutely. You and I actually overlapped during the Oracle time.
We
So
must have done at some point, yes.
exactly. And then I later on learned about marketing and SaaS at Adobe, right? Successfully led the startup to scale up challenge at Marketo after that. So my journey actually led me to recognize some of the critical gap patterns in growth-driven technology startups prompt me to become an entrepreneur myself 5 years ago. And then since then, I started providing the fractional CXO services. And then 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago, when pandemic happened, I pivoted, right, to work
Yep.
a little bit more with Fortune companies. That's being said, my career journey is non-traditional. It's not like I have a fit box, right, based on my degree or anything. I seize the opportunity, always get myself outside of the comfort zone. Um, it really, growing up with 9 boys, and that really helped. I mean, the way how you grew me, as they say, because I'm never intimidated by guys, because always when I was a solution architect at Oracle, I would walk into a meeting with a room full of guys all the time, but
Yep.
I felt very comfortable in that environment because how I grew up.
Mm. And I think that's important. Things have changed a lot, but certainly in the last, certainly during my career, a lot of the meetings were full of males, and at least now what's happening is that there's more encouragement to
Absolutely.
bring women on, STEM and things like that, to actually say, certainly in high tech, that we should have a diverse and inclusive workforce, and that's important.
Tim, I actually view that as an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Because the reality is, we should not really judge people based on gender. We should really promote the diversity of styles. Doesn't matter where you're from, what gender you are, and if you can make a salient point and you will be embraced. Your idea will be embraced, right? That's the best part of being here, being part of the America. I'm very proud of being American, citizen, because that's
Yep.
where we all have opportunities, regardless where we're from, in
Mm.
general.
So tell us about your book. Have you got a copy there to put up, or?
My book, let's talk about why, right? Why
Yeah, yeah.
behind.
I'm
Yeah.
interested in why you wrote it and the
Exactly. So why behind ascending Mount Everest was to keep a sacred promise to my grandmother. That was to leave her ashes to a tall mountain. When she passed away, I was the last person right by her side. She said, by her bed, she said three things to me: stay special, make the world proud, and spread my ash to a tall mountain. I knew, right? Grandma never asked anything from anybody. I knew it was not meant to bother me to climb the mountain to spread her ash. I know that she wanted me to stand really strong without her being around. So that's why when I really made up my mind to not only spread the ash to a tall mountain, to the tallest mountain in the world, that was the motivation. So ascending your startup was no different. It was really another way to honor the grit and resilience grandma taught growing up, to honor that, really, so that I can take to, it's no different to scale a startup either.
Mm. I think it's a great story that you honor her. So where did you take her ashes?
Well, it's a Mount Everest base camp, right? I took it to the flagpole. It was quite a journey.
Mm,
Five of us took on this journey together,
mm.
and then all of them dropped off the journey. So, and in the end, it was very lonely journey.
Right,
Those that day there were 200 people set out to this same journey with me, uh, coming from all over the world. Only three made it to that flagpole.
right.
It was the last mile was the hardest. There were points where I did not know. I never even knew I was going to be able to make it until it happened. Right.
Yes. So you've written the book, and your grandmother was the inspiration behind that. So what you've done is you've pulled all together your experiences of startup, and so you talked about there's 5 blind spots that you came across. So tell us
Mhm.
about how you used your experience to pull all those things together.
Yeah. So, growing up as an introvert, as a matter of fact, I always been writing, right, since high school, and I find writing being a way of expressing myself much better. And so that's being said, I've been writing thank you letter every single morning. I start my day
Mm.
writing 3 thank you notes. Sometimes I write the note to people who already passed away, right? So I've been writing to my grandmother for more than 10 years. So this book was in my head for more than 10 years, even though it was never published. So pandemic actually gave me an opportunity to really take the break. I decided to take a year break. This book alone, it took 8 months to write.
Yep.
I'm not a fast writer, and then another 5 months later on to publish. So that's being said, it was really a love letter to my grandmother. And then I also, because I've been working with so many founders in this in the industry, I find the hardest part for founders is to know what questions to ask.
Yes.
I mean, if you know what questions to ask, you can find the answer. You can Google and call friends. So I wanted to really contribute to the community, right? To help them understand if they really wanted to start a business, what kind of questions they should ask, how to start. So this is really why I put this book together, writing about this, so that people can really get some of the benefits out of this book, reading it, and then knowing what are the 26 questions to ask if they want to start a business. And then so that's really the reason of writing this book. And
I think that I agree with you. I think that running a startup, and I have done now for the last 6 years, um, you don't know what questions to ask. You don't know what's around the corner. And while you can anticipate it and use the experiences that you've had over your life, some things appear that you didn't realize would happen. And part of your job is to try and minimize the risk and minimize the surprises. So I think it's really important.
Tim,
So
you
one of the,
talked about, you asked me about the blind spot, the five
yeah,
disconnect, right? And in my book, I talk, if you think about startup journey, you turn idea to product, product to market, market to scale, right? Those are the three big
yeah,
camps. Like as if you climb the mountain, you have the big milestones. Within each of them, you go through different journey. All, people, even us, we all have blind spot. The first one is typically is the go to market, right? Your product market fit. As you turn your idea into product, you have to figure out where your product market fit is. This is where you define the minimum viable product. And as you move further along, there you have to not only the minimum viable product, but most importantly is the minimum viable repeatability. And then minimum viable team, that's the second minimum viable, how do you define that? Define minimum viable disconnect. And then as you move further along, there's the voice of the customer, right? As you acquire more customers, you have to know what your customer really need and matching your product, go-to-market strategy with the customer needs. So that's why the third disconnect is voice of the customer disconnect. And then as you further, right, moving from the second camp to the third one, which is market to scale, where you have to have better defined process and measurement as well, right? In my book, I talk about very in depth about some of the metrics alignment and then process, process optimization can really play a major role, especially in the later stage company or larger organization. Um, so those are the five blind spots. Easy to say, and if you haven't gone through, this is why I hired a Sherpa to guide me. I listened to the Sherpa during the journey of my climb, because if you're not a professional climber, you really the desire to climb that by yourself, even though, right, you can be as brave as you are to climb that by yourself, but the success rate is much lower than if you hire a Sherpa and then listen to the Sherpa, not just a hire, right? You look at these startups, 90% of them fail. A lot of them are brilliant. Many, almost every founder is brilliant, but then their ability to listen to the people they work with and listen at the right time, not to listen to everything, obviously, but listen when they should be listening, is really fundamental for their success.
because just playing back to you in terms of the process that people go through. So that's about, you have an idea and then creating a minimum viable product, which is about putting as small amount of effort into creating something, because obviously it could fail.
Yeah.
Then it's about your minimal viable product, your MVP repeatability, working out how you connect with the target audience, and then what you're doing in effect is you're cranking a handle on something and finding a way of cranking it faster and faster and faster, which is your voice of your customer. And as you said at the end, and I remember you saying to me when we did the call beforehand, was the clear thing is the governance and the measurement.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And you said that off the back of that, it's the measurement and the governance that allows you to accelerate the growth.
Absolutely. I mean, I would say there are four lessons I learned from my climbing experience, right? Number one, you have to prepare.
Yep.
As a founder, you go through the process, soul searching, why you wanted to do this, right? For me, it was just I have to get ready. I've never climbed. I was not a professional climber. I did not have the money to hire a personal trainer. So
Yeah.
then you have to do research, right? And getting really prepared. This is to the founders, their intentional go-to-market preparation. They have to get ready, understand the market condition, the landscape. And then the second thing is adapt, right? When I
Yep.
say adapt, I invested everything in this camera off before my trip because I want to, really capture the moments. But right before, I told you I had 4 other partners who came along
Yep.
with me, and then 3 of them dropped, and then one left to the end. And then right before we were about to head out to the last few miles, and our camera broke, right? Our camera dropped, and I could focus on getting mad with my partner, but instead I was thinking, what's not broken on this camera? And I was sitting there for an hour and figured out, oh, there's a camera, the memory card inside the camera is still working. So I said, that's just let me focus on taking the camera card out. I had my Zoom, I'll wait for someone. I could be lucky if someone came by with the same camera body. I could just insert my memory card inside the body. And then luckily, the girl came from Singapore. She
Right.
was there. She used my Zoom because most people don't carry the Zoom, is heavy, right? And then she used my Zoom. I borrowed her camera body. We were both really able to capture the moments that we both desire to. And so that's being said, that's how you adapt, right? You're gonna have, no matter how prepared you are, you always have unexpected things happen during your journey. So you have to focus on what's working, not to focus. If you can blame other people and scream at them, and then at the end of the day, it's not going to solve the problem. Number 3 is acclimate. When I say acclimate, if you're a climber, you'll know you can't just go to there's only one climber that does that all the way straight to the summit. There are 5 summits in Mount Everest. The reason there's a base camp, because as you climb, to go to summit 1, you have to go back to base camp. Then you go back to summit 2, and then always go back to base camp and redo it. So that process allows you to acclimate to the high altitude of the mountain. So this exactly process you go through, like for business, right? Sometimes you have to take a step back in order to move forward. That's why it's so important, especially in today's, changing economy and environment and market, dynamics. You have to sometimes take a step back, revisit your go-to-market strategy, and then retest the market. And sometimes you go through trial and error as a founder, right? So that's number 3. Number 4, don't forget to celebrate the small wins along the way with your team, right? The talent, we talk about workforce, management. Nobody wants to work with you the only focus on working. They all want to be part of winning team. They want to work with you to celebrate along the way. And we all want to, right, belong. We all want to belong to a community. So those 4 things are so critical, for founders. And if you're just heads down getting your goal achieved without caring about your team, you won't get far.
Excellent. And great storytelling as well in terms of explaining those points. And I think there's something that we can all learn from that. And I think one of the things that I'm taking away is that the fact that you do have to. I think for me, running a startup, it was about having a clear vision.
Yes, absolutely.
Which is about climbing it's about climbing the mountain. But as I actually approach it, I may actually do different things, but the vision is still clear.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. I capture that as a person, as a founder. There are 5 characteristics I see, right? Having clear vision is perseverance too, right? When you
Yes.
have that clear why you're doing things, you're going to keep doing it. No matter what happens, you're going to continue to do that. And then secondly is the ability to zoom out, right? Because we're in the trees every single day. How do you zoom out to see the forest? And not just you, how do you guide your team to see the forest along with you? That's the vision, right? Vision. And then number 3 is communication. You have to be a good storyteller, or your ability to articulate that vision and then break that down into actionable insights, right? It's very critical for your team, because if you say, okay, we're going to grow this company by 20%, how, right? How can that happen with engineering team how do you really inspire them to say, if I do these two things, we're going to achieve this, and what that means to your customer team, success team. So all that's so critical. And then drive, you gotta have the desire and motivation to achieve certain things. But I mentioned earlier about listening. A lot of times these brilliant founders don't really, not intentionally, right? So they would love to listen, but they don't know how to listen, when to listen, where to listen. And then lastly is the ability to disconnect from work. Some of the founders, they work so many hours. Every single founder, they work so many hours, as you know, right? But you have to be able to disconnect from work to explore life, to connect with others, to network with others, and then do things outside of your comfort zone, and even reading or climbing, do whatever, have a hobby, so that you can enrich your experience, and then people like to really do business with you, right? It's not about your product people are interested in. It is about you as an individual people love to engage with. And that's where you're going to have a longer term success.
I find that disconnecting is really important, because I actually find that disconnecting is a time where you think, because you have the time and the space to think. So I saw a quote today that if you're a machine, when someone presses the pause button, the machine stops. But actually, for a human, when you press the pause button, that actually is when a human can actually start, because of the fact that you are given the space to actually think about things. I came back from holiday. We went to Lanzarote at the end of August, and I came back with loads of ideas. Because I'd had the time and not had to come on calls and things like that. And I think it's so important to stop.
I call that, Tim. I actually learned that in a hard way, right? Early in my career, always go, go, go. Now I finally get to a point where I would say there are four types of wealth, right? Freedom and time are within our control. It's so critical to take a break. I mentioned earlier about, in order to move forward, you have to take a step back. And
Yep.
being our well-being is so critical no matter what we do.
Yep.
And that's part of our success, right? So we need to redefine success, what that means. And we cannot, as you said, even machine needs a maintenance, right? I mean, maintenance time, downtime. As human, we really need to take a step back from time to time and then recharge ourselves. And that's really critical. And then also get ourselves into a learning mode, right? Into we just say, something that we've never done, even cooking or running or doing something that's outside of our whatever things that we want to do, and so we can become more productive in general. Yeah.
Helen, thank you so much. The 20 minutes goes so quickly. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and your expertise and insights. It's always a fascinating subject, especially because I'm in a startup, so I know the area very well, and your insight has been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on. Remind people where they can get hold of you.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Tim. People can get a hold of me through multiple social media channels. LinkedIn obviously is one of them. And then Twitter, they can find me through @YU, Helen Yu. And also they can find me on YouTube. I have my own channel, CXO Spice channel. And look forward to staying connected with people. And just feel free to reach out to me.
Thanks, Helen. Thank you so much for coming on today.